Is DC drawing from some old source material to bring us a new story? What's the deal with Marvel Generations? The Inhumans trailer dropped. Let's talk about it. And what are we missing most from E3 2017? All this, plus we'll talk about some Spider-Man stuff in this week's Nerd News.
Thank you for tuning in to Entertain the Geeky, your source for nerd news.
Guys, what's going on? Chris here with our new Nerd News host, Jason O'Toole!
What up?
I'm stoked. So guys, today Jason is going to be bringing you the news. I'm going to be bringing you some banter with it, and we'll see what happens next. What do you got, man?
So, I'd like to talk about E3. We just a couple weeks ago got to see everything that the video game publishers have to push out over the next couple of years. Specifically, I'd like to talk about what we didn't see. That was kind of disappointing. The big one is the Final Fantasy VII remake. I mean, I think a lot of us have been, fan or no fan, a lot of us have been hyped about the engine they're going to bring us for this game, the new battle system, that it's more similar to, what Final Fantasy 15 did as a game, which was a very fun game. I mean, it wasn't a very long game, and it didn't have a lot of depth, but the combat was fun, and that's what the engine is based on. But then take that and put that into the story of Final Fantasy VII, and man, we've been teased with this for so long, and they're about to finally bring it to us, and we saw no footage, no new information.
It's probably going to get its own thing.
Well, I mean, we still got the Tokyo Game Show in, I guess a month or a couple months, I don't know, sometime in the fall. And so there's a possibility we could see, some footage or some gameplay, but I'd really just like to know that the game is progressing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm not really concerned about how long it takes to make it and when they're finally going to get it to us. I just like to see those little bits of information so I can see they are making progress. Because it's a game that I've been waiting for so long, and I think a lot of people out there have also been waiting for it, and I want to play it.
So you're basically like, I'm keeping tabs on you guys,
right.
And I need to know what you're doing right now.
Exactly. I want to know that you're doing the work that you promised that you're going to do. There was some notable things that we, can also be excited about that were showed off. God of War 3 was showed, or 4, I guess. Just God of War, I think is what they're calling it.
Fair enough.
But yeah, they're changing from the Greek pantheon to the Norse pantheon.
Oh, so it's going to be Tyr.
Yeah.
That's my son, by the way.
Yeah, it's definitely changing how we'll look at the game, how we'll play the game, and the lore of the game. Also, Kratos is using an axe that is basically Mjolnir, because it just comes right back to him.
If he's the Norse god of war, though, he needs to be missing a hand.
Well, I mean, that could happen during the game.
It better.
We're not really sure what this game will be. A lot of the gameplay we've seen is the son of Kratos, right? There's a little kid, he's the companion, he's your actual son. A lot of the gameplay we've been seeing shown off is the son, and so there's a lot of speculation about whether or not this is going to be a game where Kratos is just a partner to you and a mentor, and he teaches you how to be, the guy you're going to be, or if you'll have a more direct role in controlling Kratos and dealing some damage to ridiculous hordes of monsters.
Yeah, boy.
Another notable absence that is just really, really bothering and it just keeps grating on my nerves is Kingdom Hearts 3.
Okay.
We've been, literally almost a decade since Kingdom Hearts came out, right? So we have been waiting for the final and true sequel to the game for that long. I mean, seriously, we've gotten a bunch of games in between that have kind of given us some fun stuff, but nothing comes close to wanting to see Sora's story concluded. And I think that getting to see that is something that everyone's been waiting for. We've kind of all been just teased for the last almost decade. You know
what's funny is Kingdom Hearts fans are some of the most devoted fans to a franchise ever. Oh yeah. Like you guys are insane. No, you've got the key.
I literally have the Oblivion Keyblade tattooed on my arm.
But, because I've got a little cousin that's been into it since Kingdom Hearts originally came out. I think it was on PlayStation 2, right? Or was it the PSX? The
original one was PS2, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he got the original Kingdom Hearts. He thought that game was the bee's knees, man. Like, he loved it. And anytime they would have, like, a spoiler or anything come out, he was like, dude, Kingdom Hearts. And all of their fans are like that. Like, Mike Capuano. Oh, yeah. That dude's Kingdom Hearts collection is ridiculous, but
he's bought every remake they've done.
It's pure passion for you guys, and it's freaking mind-melting. But no, it's cool. That's one of those things that I wish I could have got behind that.
Right.
There's just kind of out there for me. I was like Disney and Final Fantasy at the same time.
It works. I'm going to tell you, man. You think I know a lot of people who aren't really into the story, and when you give them that premise, they're very confused. They're like, "What? Final Fantasy and Disney? That doesn't make sense." But it actually goes together really well, and they've created a whole world for it.
Huge following. I mean, they did something right.
Yeah.
What else you got?
So the Inhumans trailer dropped.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of weird skepticism about what this is. ABC going to be able to pull off something movie quality, right? They gave them a movie quality budget. Disney's putting a lot of money into it. They want it to be good. We saw a trailer of what I assume is the IMAX premiere that we're getting, because the first 2 episodes are going to be shown in theaters on IMAX screens, because it was shot with IMAX cameras. They're very proud of all of that. They have this big partnership with IMAX. So the trailer is our first glimpse as to whether or not it's going to be movie quality. And while I do think that initial reaction to the photo of all of the characters in costume was negative, I think when you see them in motion, they do work a little better. Still photos often don't give you an idea of how the fabric moves with the actor, how the costume fits and tightens at certain places to show off muscle structure. And I think it looks a lot better in motion. I will say something negative is that the sets look a little cheap. I don't know if maybe that's just because the trailer is a very limited set of shots throughout, Attilan, but it definitely looks a little store-bought.
So the,
right?
the costumes and the set look cheap. Okay.
See, I'm going to disagree with the costumes, because once you see them in motion, like I said, they
you
do look a little
better in motion.
Yeah.
I trust you there. But maybe because the sets are stationary?
Well, that could be too. I mean, we'll find out in September when we finally get to take a look at it. But one thing I will say that's very, very positive is Lockjaw. We get to see a full view of Lockjaw kind of teleport his way in, and he's a big giant bulldog, and he's got the little tuning fork on his head like Black Bolt's costume, and it's just great. It was a really, really fun little cameo, and it seems as if they are using Lockjaw in a more comic relief type fashion. You see him at one moment there, and then after the logo goes up, you have that little after logo moment where you see him just kind of being a dog. So there's definitely a comedic value I think they're going to get out of Lockjaw, which is how he's always been best utilized in the comics. But I am excited to see Maximus the Mad, because they're going with the classic story. Attilan is on the moon. Black Bolt is complacent, and he's being obviously silent about what he feels. And Maximus sees this as weakness and rises up to take control of the Inhumans and take them to Earth and take over Earth, because that's their birthright. And we do see a couple of good moments in the trailer between Maximus and Black Bolt. One in particular where Black Bolt about uses his powers, and Maximus shits himself in terror at this idea that Black Bolt's about to talk.
Don't speak at me.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, Black Bolt's power is a supersonic voice. If he talks, he can literally level buildings with the sonic waves that are produced by his vocal patterns.
That's insane.
Yeah, so we get a little cool shot of that where he's kind of being mistreated on Earth, and some cops are beating him, and he kind of grunts, just a small grunt, and it rips a cop car apart.
Nice.
Which was pretty cool to see. But yeah, so I guess we'll see when it finally drops. What ABC and Disney are bringing to us with this.
Remember when Inhuman was supposed to be a movie?
Yeah,
just a couple of years ago, and they're like, and Vin Diesel's going to be Black Bolt.
Well, Vin Diesel, they didn't say that. Vin Diesel said that. He said he really wanted to be Black Bolt.
I figured he had his way after Guardians. I was like,
probably.
He could probably do what he wants after that movie.
And
he is Groot.
Right, and there's a comedic irony in him playing the one character that says the same thing all the time, and then the character that says nothing.
Yep. Absolutely.
But yeah, in other, Marvel news, we're literally a week away from Spiderman Homecoming. Questions on our minds. Will it live up to the hype? Is it going to usher in a new era of good Spider-Man films? Because honestly, the last time a Spider-Man film was good, in my opinion, is Spider-Man 2. I don't know how you feel as the Spider-Man aficionado.
I wouldn't call myself an aficionado, fanatic, a little bit.
Yeah, a tad.
But, so, I've been pretty disgusted with the Spider-Man movies up until this point. I've wanted to like them.
Yeah, me too.
And I've tried. Like, I convinced myself for a minute. I was like, Amazing Spider-Man 2 wasn't that bad. And then I was like, you know what?
Ugh.
I can't even try to convince myself of that.
No, it was really bad.
It was really bad. And then we have, the Green Goblin scale creature man.
Yeah, he's like a diseased man.
And it was weird.
I don't know.
It was so weird.
Yeah.
Thank God Sony doesn't have a say in things right now. Like,
yeah, I mean, creatively, it's all Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what they do with the franchise. The hype train for this movie has been incredible, and I think it's one of the most impressive to date.
Yeah, I mean, they've been nothing but flooding the airways with advertisements, TV spots, promotions through, businesses.
Through the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous.
It was
the
insane.
NBA, did you see those NBA Finals videos?
Yes,
they were great.
They were hysterical.
Oh, they're so good. If you haven't watched it, go out and watch the Spiderman Homecoming NBA Final stuff, because it's just a little sketch between him and Tony and Happy, and it's fantastic.
How much do you think they had to pay RDJ to do that? Or do you think I'll bet he gets a cut of the earnings.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine with him being what essentially built this. I mean, he did. He was the first hero.
The Marvel Universe.
He built this. Second to who?
Hulk.
No, Hulk came after.
Oh, I thought the Hulk movie came out first.
No,
you know what? You're right.
Yeah,
Iron Man has the cameo at the end of Hulk.
Yep,
You were
it was
completely
Iron
right.
Man, it was Incredible Hulk, then Iron Man 2.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Iron Man and Incredible Hulk came out in the same summer. Iron Man was May. Hulk was like July or August.
They both were 2008.
Yeah.
That was their first two films. They shot them simultaneously. They were trying to hook people, and it worked. I mean, look at us here. We're like 16, 17 films later.
Oh, we're stoked.
And it's still good.
It's like 10 years later.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And it's still.
I am absolutely ecstatic about this movie. It's their time of reckoning.
Yeah, I mean, it's their time to show that, Sony had their chance. They really tried. They failed on so many levels. It's a chance for Sony to reap still some reward from this property, but Marvel to take creative control. And hopefully the movie will do well enough that Sony will reconsider their ideas about Venom and Silver Sable and some of these other characters.
I don't know if it's Sony's ideas about Venom and Silver Sable or if it's Marvel's. Because Marvel's not getting they're not getting any money out of this.
Well, see, they are, though. The way Marvel gets money out of Sony is they have to put their own characters in his films.
Correct.
So what you will see probably from here on out when it comes to Spider-Man solo films, it will always be a team-up movie. Because that's the only way Marvel can reap any profit from the story. It's their licensed character in another property.
That makes sense. Okay, so that's why Tony Stark this is Iron Man 4.
Well, I mean, it works well with Tony being the mentor to Peter, a la
So
Civil
weird.
War, and some of the other things that we've seen. It is going to be strange, and I think it's going to provide some really amazing moments between the two characters.
Mentor Stark is just a foreign concept in and of itself, because Tony Stark is an arrogant ass.
Yeah, he's not the guy you want telling you how to live.
No! But what they've done beautifully is, like, we in the trailers and stuff, we've seen these little clips where he's like, I wanted you to be better than me. Yeah. And you're like, dude, that's amazing. Like, that's freaking cool.
Yeah, what Tony sees is in this kid is a better world. A world where the heroes are the moral high ground. They are the moral, authority. And Tony, oftentimes thinking he's the moral authority, has led Tony to do some terrible things. But I think what he sees in Peter is a chance to make up and atone for the mistakes and prepare for the future.
Tony's been insane.
Yeah. Oh, he's nuts.
I mean, even in the Marvel, like in the cinematic universe, because they've tried to tone down his level of nuts pretty drastically. And dude, he still comes across as a little bit crazy.
Well, in the comic world, he's responsible for all the terrible things. Yeah.
In the comic book world, I mean, he's borderline a villain. Like, you could argue the point.
He was a villain for a while.
Yeah, Superior Iron Man
was a villain. Yeah.
That was a cool story, though.
It was. If you missed out on that one, that was an interesting one.
Go back and read it. And
check
Superior
it out.
Spider-Man. Oh my God.
Oh, that was.
If they adapted that to film,
that was some of the best Spider-Man stuff I've ever read.
It was. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I want Flash Thompson's Venom.
That's what I want. So Flash Thompson is in Spider-Man Homecoming. He's played by a young Indian kid, and I can't think of his name offhand.
An Indian kid.
Yeah, Flash Thompson being they were trying to diversify the cast. Obviously, they got Liz, as an African American woman, and Ned, who is always been Ned Leeds, who's always been portrayed as a white guy, is being played by. I'm just spacing names right now.
No. I feel like that's a very subtle change. Like something like that. It's when you take one of the like if they took Harry Osborn, and we're like, all right, now you are a Chinese guy, Harry Osborn. You'd be like, that's kind of weird.
I mean, it's strange, but it's not
out of the realm of reality at all.
You can do whatever you want with the character as long as the motivation remains there.
It's interesting, and it's I don't want to see them change the story because they're changing race on characters.
I don't think that's going to be the case.
I hope to God not.
Yeah.
Because there's 50 plus years of story there that's very good.
Yeah.
And it could be perfected, if you will.
Absolutely.
Through doing this right and using this film medium that they have and this universe that they've built over the last 10 years that's magical and amazing and beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
They nothing but opportunity.
Yeah, I'm hearing that it's the best movie they've done. We hear that about a lot of them, but I really think the best movie they had done up until this point is Captain America: Winter Soldier.
It was very good.
So we'll see whether or not Spider-Man can dethrone what in most people's, and a lot of people I've talked to, that's their favorite movie. That's what they deem the best one.
That's kind of the high bar for a lot of. See, Guardians of the Galaxy, still one of my all-time favorites.
I mean, it's great, but I think when you look at the Guardians of the Galaxy, at least before Infinity War, which we're about to get into next year, there definitely feels like their own part of the universe. They don't feel very connected to what's going on Earth. Yeah. So when you look at them, I think you have to put Guardians in a different class.
It's like its own thing out there.
It is the best of the cosmic Marvel stuff, for sure. Now, truth be told, it's the only cosmic Marvel stuff, but that will change as we go into Phase 4.
Well, like even Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was a more campy movie.
Sure.
But I loved it.
Oh, super
freaking
fun.
Loved it.
Yeah, it was really good. So let's get into what's going on in the world of comics here real quick.
What do you got?
So Marvel, speaking of, is about to launch this big cross the board relaunch, I guess, if you will, called Marvel Generations. Now I say relaunch loosely because I don't really know if that's what's happening. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'd be a little disappointed if that's what's happening because we've had so many things relaunched so many times in the past.
It's old.
I mean, even in the past 3 years, we had Secret Wars.
Years have been nuts,
we had Secret Wars. We had the Heroic Age back in 2015 or 14, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just it's enough is enough. Like let's let the legacy build for a little while before we decide to change everything again. So they're already talking about characters might die, other characters might get replaced, all of these things, and there's speculation. Obviously, nothing has officially been answered by Marvel, and we won't know until we get to see the book and have it in our hands and read it. But it definitely, if it's a relaunch, I'm very disappointed. If it's not, I'm actually quite excited.
You know what would be really cool is if they did what DC did and just said everything is Marvel continuity. You could pick up a story at any point in time, and that's what's going on.
I mean, that's a good move, but DC's having to do a lot of really big shuffling in order to make that a reality with the continuity they've already established for New 52.
As for me as a reader, it's not my responsibility to worry about it.
Well, but for some readers, it's absolutely their obsession to understand how all of these things fit together. Myself included.
I must understand how it connects. Okay, I get you.
I mean, you want to. If everything's going to be explained that this is how it's always been, you have to build the connective tissue. I mean, Jeff Johns is a great example of a writer who, through Green Lantern and Rebirth and what he did after that, he managed to take 40, 50 years of continuity and make it all fit within his story, that it was all there and it all happened exactly as the comics presented it. He is the master at that. That's why he is now in charge of DC. I mean, he's a big wig at the company now. So there's definitely, if you're going to change something so majorly and you're going to tell me that things are this way, you have to be able to back that up. I have to be able to look back in stories or even in the current story being told and find a reason. So Generations, it could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. I'm not really going to say for sure at this point because I'm a reader and I want to get it in my hands.
Skeptical optimism, then.
There you go.
All right. Fair enough.
And DC, DC, I mean, they are definitely about to do something that is either going to enlighten and just make all of their fans really happy, or everybody's going to be very angry again. Right, because what we are getting into with Dark Knight's Metal is the story. It's reuniting Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, and if you're unfamiliar with the work they've done on Batman in the New 52, get familiar with it. It is great. It is probably the most shining example of what New 52 had to offer. And I'm not just saying that as a Batman fan. I'm saying that as a DC reader. A lot of people gave up on New 52. I did not. I stuck with it. I wanted to understand. There were ups, there were downs, more downs than ups for most of the books. Justice League had some good arcs. Wonder Woman, while Azzarello was writing it, was very well written. And then it kind of took a dip as well. But this is kind of bringing those guys back together. And what they're telling us is this is the culmination of that story. That New 52 story that they wrote.
That had been writ.
That had been written. that they wrote from 0 all the way up to number 52.
Nice.
Yeah, they stopped at 52 with the legacy books right before.
Fair
Rebirth.
enough.
Yeah,
fair
it worked
enough.
really well. So
that
they
had to have been on purpose.
Oh well.
They're at some meeting. They're like, hey,
we should stop.
They're 45 books in.
Yeah.
And they're like, let's go ahead and wrap this up at 52. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
Rebirth.
Yeah, and I don't even think Snyder wrote the last 2. I think
really?
I don't even think he wrote 50 or 51 and 52. I think he wrote 250, and that was the end of his story. But I think you're right. They probably just said, well, we're so close, let's stretch it out.
2 more
and
issues.
they brought in
Come
another
on.
writer to kind of do a little epilogue for the whole thing.
Scott Schneider, he did, he did Witches.
Witches.
And that is such an amazing series.
American Vampire.
I didn't read American Vampire.
American Vampire is literally presenting an idea of a world of vampires that is really not what you expect, knowing how vampires are and how they operate and what they do. It really kind of turned the vampire thing on its head.
Kind of like Twilight. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, some people would say that kind of turned the thing on its head, but I think that was more of a stumble and fall than a good thing. But they definitely did something interesting with American Vampire. Their version of Dracula was very compelling, and it wasn't what you expect when you think of Dracula. If you haven't checked out American Vampire or Witches, they're both very, very good books, and I highly recommend, and I think Chris does as well, that you check out those books. But we are kind of seeing a culmination of Snyder and Capullo's Batman story, and what that means for the larger DC universe is we are really going to draw from some very old concepts that we thought forgotten or not a part of this DC universe that are going to come back. One of the biggest ones is Plastic Man.
Oh.
Plastic Man is a character, if you're unfamiliar, from the Silver Age of comics, and he's basically Mr. Fantastic, but he's insane.
He's awesome.
I mean, he's awesome. I agree with you, but he was a psycho jewel thief, I think.
Yep.
And he got, accidents happen like all superhero stories start, and he ended up living rubber, and he took that as a sign that he needed to change his ways, and he became a superhero. But he was still kind of a crazy guy.
Yeah.
And apparently Batman's had him locked up in some kind of cage or enclosure.
Since the 60s?
Well, no, since New 52, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Because, according to Batman, he poses a very big threat to the world. Now, I don't understand how Plastic Man is a threat to the world, but I guess we'll get into that later.
It's going to be revealed that he is actually Mr. Fantastic, come from the Marvel Universe. Batman's like, the Illuminati is here.
That could be interesting.
And it's the Plastic Man.
I mean, my only thought process on Plastic Man being a threat to the world is that he's just such a psycho and he's so powerful that if he should ever turn against the world, he'd win.
Yeah,
Plastic Man has withstood punches from Superman. You know what I mean? Like, he's living rubber. So, I guess in that regard, he could be a danger.
Yeah.
We'll find out as the story goes on.
I don't know about heat vision and cold breath, though. Like,
well, that's true. I don't remember if those things have been tested, but that should be something that would go down.
They better test it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be ticked if they don't.
They're also bringing back a concept from Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is going back a while. Yeah. So apparently, within the one shot that is kind of preluding this, and it's the only part of the story that's actually out. It's called Dark Days: The Forge. They're on shelves now. Check them out because it's a very good read. But there's definitely a connection to it because Batman goes to the Fortress of Solitude, and apparently he's had this thing in the Fortress of Solitude that Superman's kept under lock and key. Superman doesn't even know what it is. And in order to prevent somebody from using it, Batman threw the key into the sun. So there's no way to open it, so they call in Mr. Miracle, because that's what he does. He's a magician.
Oh my God.
He can pick locks. That's his specialty. So he goes in, the lock is literally bigger than him, and he floats his ass in there, and he comes back out and he says to Batman, if that's what I think it is, if you've kept that all these years, you need to stop whatever you're doing. And before he even finishes his sentence, Bruce just says, that will be all, Scott. And shuffles him away so that he can be alone. Superman's gone too. He asked him to leave, right? So what comes out of this big hole in the ground is the Anti-Monitor's Doomsday device.
Oh, wow.
From Crisis on Infinite Earths. You remember the thing that was going to turn the entire positive matter universe into the antimatter universe that would have destroyed all life
Everything,
in the universe. Yeah, everybody would have been dead. Flash sacrifices himself. He saves the day, gets trapped in the Speed Force, comes back during Flash Rebirth later. So that's definitely a concept that is not something I ever knew would come into play
that's
in a
crazy.
Batman story, right?
I'm trying to figure out... So, Batman's like, hey, Superman, I know I'm at your place, but get out.
Yep. And he even has a moment where you see a side of Batman that you don't see very often, where Superman says, look, if you need help, I can help you. And Batman replies, well, I appreciate that, Clark, and I will take you up on that. But until I figure out what we're dealing with, I need you to go. And in not so many words. I'm not exactly sure what the dialogue was. But he basically tells him, look, I appreciate that, and I will ask for your help, because I'm going to need it. But I got to figure this out first, so you got to go.
Get out of your house.
And Miracle Man boom tubes away, and he's left there alone. And we don't actually see a resolution to that. This is, a lot of setup that is kind of building toward the Dark Knight's Metal story. So we are then taken to... Green Lantern and the current Bat sidekick. He doesn't have a name yet. He was in a future issue. He basically is a young African American kid, and he's been in the Batcave and supporting Batman through the Batcave role. He hasn't really been out in the field kid.
Okay. He's not Robin yet.
Right.
We're getting there.
Right. And Green Lantern is sent by Ganthet. If you're not familiar with Ganthet, he's one of the Guardians of the Galaxy. He is the Guardian of the Galaxy right now in the DC universe. So he sends Hal to investigate some anomalous readings he's getting from Earth. And Hal recognizes the address right away. It's Wayne Manor. So he goes into the Batcave. This kid tries to stop him. This kid is very unsuccessful at stopping him because
it's Green
Lantern.
Yeah.
Long story short, they come across a hidden cave inside the Batcave. Hal actually makes a joke about it. Like, only Batman would have a hidden cave inside his hidden cave.
Nice.
And a voice just starts speaking to them and telling them of all of these things. One of the big things it starts talking about is nth metal. And if you're unfamiliar with what nth metal is, it comes from Hawk World, which is an alternate reality where the Hawk characters come from. Hawkman, Hawkwoman. And their weapons, their armor, they're all made out of this, spacey metal called nth metal. It's spelled NTH, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but that's how I've always said it my whole life, and that's what we're going with.
Adamantium.
Right.
Go
on. But it is foreign to this universe.
Yeah.
And Batman has been studying some various things, and this voice in this hidden cave starts talking about these various things. The big one being a compound called Dionysium. And if you're unfamiliar with Dionysium, back during a Joker storyline at the end of the New 52 run, there was an implication that Joker was immortal, and that he had existed throughout all of Gotham's history. He was called the Man Who Laughs. Now, obviously, he wasn't Joker until his dip in the chemicals and his skin being bleached, but he was always the Man Who Laughs. And there is definitely...
it's actually a movie, by the way. That's where they drew inspiration for the character of the Joker.
Oh, yeah.
So that's funny.
There was also a graphic novel, The Man Who Laughs, that was supposed to be like a follow-up to The Killing Joke, unofficially. Yeah. But anyway, so they start hearing this voice telling them all of these things, and talking about the various connections that Batman has made. Apparently Wonder Woman's gauntlets, the Helmet of Fate, Poseidon's trident that is carried by Aquaman, all have traces of this strange metal. And Dionysium is a compound that is derived from it. So... if you've been following along, if you've been reading, your mind naturally goes to the Joker. So what they find out at the end of this issue is, indeed, Batman has been keeping the immortal Joker...
in his cave?
...locked in the cave, solving this problem. Helping to solve this problem. Because even though the Joker is mad, he's very intelligent. And you see he's gone mad in here. I mean, he's literally got numbers and math scrawled all over the walls. He's been trying to solve something for the Batman. We don't know what yet. And that's where the one shot ends. So it's a lot of setup.
That's huge.
Right, for what could be a pretty amazing story in Dark Knight's Metal.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has implications going, like I said, far back, far reaching, and it might please a lot of fans that have been looking for something classic and something that feels more legacy driven.
that just sounds nuts. I'm like, right now.
Yeah.
I knew as soon as you mentioned the Joker, I was like, he's keeping the Joker in his cave inside of a cave.
Yeah, I mean,
you're a popular guy right now.
I'm sorry, guys. That is,
I'm sorry, that was annoying. Anyway, yes, he's keeping the Joker locked in the cave, working on some kind of problem. Which again is a huge kind of step in a different direction with a team up happening between Batman and the Joker. There was also an implication during Justice League, the Darkseid War, that Joker's actually 3 people. There's more than one Joker. There is this Joker who's immortal. There is the Brian Ballin Killing Joke Joker, and then there is the Silver Age era Joker, I think, is the other one. Okay. The one with the big bow tie.
Yeah.
So there's also implication there, right? Are we going to finally get some closure to that story? Are we going to understand the Joker's far-reaching effect and what he's done to Batman over all of these years? So just very interesting stuff. Metal is going to be a 9-part miniseries. There will be a series of one-shots that tie into it and several comics throughout DC's pantheon.
I'm reading it.
Yeah.
Done. I'm not even a DC reader. I'm like, I'll read that one.
Yeah.
Sold. I want that one in trade paper.
Oh yeah, they'll definitely release a nice hardcover with the 9 parts and all the one-shots and everything will be in chronological order. It'll be great.
That's what I want.
That is something that makes me happy, is when they release nice big hardcovers and they put all the parts in chronological order.
And you're like, this is beautiful.
Right. You just read it as they intended me to read it.
Love it.
But that's it. That's really what I've got here for this week's Nerd News, man.
That's beautiful.
It's an interesting time to be a fan.
It's a good time to be a fan.
Great things happening in the gaming world, the comic world, and the TV movie world.
So, I guess on that note, I want to invite our listeners to go to slugfestgames.com. These are the guys that brought you Red Dragon in. Now, they've got a bunch of different games out. Battle for Greyport, High Noon Saloon, Fishing for Terrorists, fun stuff, man. Check out the people at Slugfest Games. They're doing good stuff. They're not run by some crazy corporation like Hasbro. These are people that make games that love them, so support them. Also, go to entertainthegeeky.com. You can find all of our social media there. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Give Jason a shout out. Let him know that he killed it on his first ever Nerd News.
I tried.
And Jason, do you have any parting words that you'd like to leave the listeners with?
What I would like to leave the listeners with is go out, check out some comics, go check out some of these awesome movies that are coming out. Spider-Man's next week. Let's show Marvel and Sony that we need these things to be this way. But just keep enjoying all the geeky stuff that we love.